as the prof rightly said, for us to, we have to know our risks, then we'll put in the mitigation measures. So we have to know the level of our risks, because we can't have a risk of €5 and we pay exactly €5 to mitigate it. There are some risks we can neglect or we can still manage. So how do we manage these risks? How do we know which one to manage and which one not to manage? That is why we bring to you the risk matrix using Adidas as the case study. So from the matrix, risk matrix, we have two categories, which is the likelihood that this risk will happen, and if it does happen, what are the impacts of this risk? So we have almost certain that it will happen, very likely that it will happen, likely that it will happen, possible that this risk will happen, and unlikely. And the impact, it can be very low, it can be low, it can be medium, it can be high, and it can be very high. So when it is in this level, the financial equivalent is 1 million. Less than 1 million euro. When it is in the low category, it is between 1 million and 10 million. When it is in the medium level, it is between 10 million and 50 million euro. When it is on the high side, it is between 50 million and 100 million. And when it is on the very high side, it can cost the company more than 100 million. So the qualitative equivalent is when the risks are very low, we won't hear of it. There will be almost no media coverage. When it is on the low side, limited local media coverage. When it is on the medium side, we have the local and limited national media coverage. Then probably national people in the country where it is happening will hear of it. But when the risk is on the high side, national and limited international media coverage. But when it is on the very high side, then probably all the whole world, we know what Adidas is going through. So, as the other group has rightly said, we have strategic risks, operational risks, legal and compliance risks, and financial risks. So now we are going to tell you the likelihood of all these risks happening, and if it does happen, how is it going to affect Adidas? So we start with the strategic risks. So under the strategic risks, Adidas categorized, or they listed five risks under this strategic risks. And so the first one, as the other group has said, was, I think the first one was organizational structure. Yeah, it's there. Organizational structure and change risks. It is under the likelihood that it will happen. It is very unlikely that the risks under this would happen. But when it does happen, it is on high side. So when organizational structure and change risks, example like he said, probably the employee does not take to change, and if we don't have dedicated employees, surely the product is going to be affected. If the product is affected, more and more things is affected. It is unlikely that this will happen because they have mitigation measures for all these risks. But when it does happen, the impact on the company as a whole is on high side. I think the second risk under the strategic risk is the distribution and strategic risk. It is very likely that this would happen because it is likely because they cannot control it, the distribution channel 100%. It is not possible for them to control it. So there is likelihood that it would happen, and they graded it as 30 to 50% that this would happen, and the impact on it is moderate. They probably lose or spend 10 to 50 million to mitigate this risk. And also, they also have competition risk. Like we said earlier, there is Puma. Their major competition is Nike, and as we have heard, Nike has a self-lacing shoe, and it is possible that people would go more for Nike now than coming for Adidas, and there's a possibility of this risk happening. The possibility is 15 to 30%, and it will cost the company 10 to 50 million euros to mitigate this risk. And also there is the media and stakeholder activity risk, and it is also possible for these risks to happen because they also cannot control what the media says about them, or what the media says about them. And people have this, how would I say it, of filtering news. Probably they are saying something about Adidas, you would only hear the bad thing, then you will not hear what the media is really saying about Adidas, or the case the professor gave us about someone that fell down wearing the Adidas shoe, whereas it was not what he was supposed to wear. Some people might not finish reading the news and just see, oh, he fell down wearing the Adidas sneakers. No, I'm not wearing these shoes again. So that is when this type of risk happens, it is moderate. And we also have the macroeconomics and social, political, and regulatory risks. So this is very unlikely to happen, but when it does happen, it is very severe. In the example for macroeconomics risk, probably there is a political unrest or probably war in a particular country. If I'm in such country, I will not think of wearing shoes, talk less of thinking of I want to buy Adidas. So if this happens, surely the sales in that country will fall. And also, I think I mentioned it right. Okay. So the next category of risks.
I'm going to explain the operational risks metrics in this map. Like the first, it comes to the personnel risks. Like we all know nowadays, the company's success and the strategic objectives and financial objectives is highly dependent on the employees and their talent. Especially the company's success is rely on the highly qualified employees. Sometimes if you put the person in the wrong position, especially strategic position, it will cause a disaster to the company. And also, if the company they cannot hire the enough highly qualified and skilled people and retain the employee in their company, this is also cost the company will cause the company the direct value loss, and so the personnel loss is unavoidable. So it can always happen, but the possibility likelihood in Adidas is not very high because Adidas they have their own people strategy, and they train their employees and offer their employee development and career opportunities, and they investing a lot on their employer branding, building, trying to be the choice of employer. As far as I know, some people they are doing sports, and when they apply job, they first want to go to Adidas. This is because of they have a good company brand as an employer, and also they prefer to promote their rather than hire from external. And comes to the business partner, as my colleagues in formally explained, they have multiple partnerships with the promotion partners and the strategic cooperation with suppliers and the customers, and also the distributor, the retailers. Like they have sponsored the sports events and individual athletes and the clubs and association. They have multiple cooperation levels, so they never rely on heavily on individual clubs or athletes, because once a very popular athlete got injured, or the popular club they lose games on field, it will lose the customer appeal and causing the decreasing the brand attractiveness to the company, and it will lead to the decrease of sales. And also they have strategic partnership with suppliers and customers. In 2016, according to the annual report of Adidas, there is no customer account for more than 5% of a company's sales of Adidas. It means they can lose customers without damaging their company's profit from the road. And also they have a strict monitor and inspection system controlling their supplier system. And they don't have a single source channel for the suppliers, because Adidas is a global company. They have global sourcing channels, and it increases their agility and flexibility. Even it could happen, but Adidas, they have the ability to use their global system and their multiple strategies to control the possible value loss. So it comes to the possible. And talking about the IT risk, nowadays all the companies, they doing their business, their know-how, their confidential and sensitive information in IT system. Like for Adidas, their order management and financial report and the warehouse management, all the information are in IT system. Imagine if there is a virus attack on the IT, and it will be a catastrophe for the company. But Adidas company, they control. They have proactively preventional maintenance to the IT system. They have the alerting and monitoring measurements methods to control the IT system. Also, they are using ERP system. Almost all the information are in ERP system, and they do backup every day on daily basis. And also they have a contingency solution to the ERP system. They can switch to remote location immediately without data loss. So they control the risk properly. And comes to the inventory risk. Inventory risk is avoidable for a manufacturing company. And as long as they manufacture something, they have to place order to suppliers. They have to manage their own inventories. Like my colleagues mentioned, even the Adidas, they place order 9 months in advance of delivery, and because they control the suppliers very strictly, they rating the customers, and also they are trying to improve their accuracy of forecasting the market, the customer demand, and also they have a global sales channel. control, and comes to the customs and the tax regulation, because the customs and tax regulation is something about external. You can do something, but you cannot control it 100%. Like Adidas company, they create their own provisions on financial statement to account for the potential risks for the tax and customs calculation to avoid the further value loss of the company. And even they cooperate with the customer office and the government to clear their products and to calculate their income tax and the intra-company transactions properly. So it could happen, but something can be controlled. Adidas already did some measures to control this. This is the operational aspects.
Coming to the financial risk, first we'll go through the currency risk. It's mainly because Adidas is a multinational company, so it's operating most of the countries, but the financial result that they publish in terms of euro. So, and their net income is also converted in terms of euro. So during the transaction of the currency, we cannot really help it. So it's seriously non-avoidable. But the impact is very high, because if we see in 2016, if there would have at least 10% negative impact on US dollar, the shareholder equity have been reduced to 277 million, which is more than 100 million euro. So the severity of the risk is very high, and even since it is unavoidable, it comes under the likelihood of 30 to 50%. Also, the exposure, like they calculate the exposure, how much they were exposed to currency risk. So it was around 2,500 million euro, so which is more than 100 million euro. That's why they count the currency risk as severity high, and it can happen most probably 30 to 50%. Then coming to the impairment of goodwills and other tangible assets, as we all know, Adidas has taken over Reebok, and the sourcing, like all the currency was in US dollar when they bought the company Reebok, but it got transferred to euro. So whenever they buy something and they transfer it to euro, they has to this currency translation comes into the picture during that particular time. So it affects the company with a high severity, and it also has a likelihood of 30 to 50%, because Adidas as a multinational company, they always increase their business, like they do their business development every year to year. That's why it comes under the severity of high, and the likelihood is 30% to 50%. If we go to the next risk, that is credit risk. It is something when a supplier has to pay to Adidas and it goes for a default, or Adidas has to pay to the bank and it goes for default. But the likelihood is very less, because in Adidas, before providing a credit to any supplier, they do a thorough check, like they do a check of the credit worthiness of the supplier. If they find it suitable, then only they provide a credit to the supplier. But interesting point is they only provide 10% of credit. It's not more than 10%. So even the severity is high, it is very unlikely that it can happen. And also Adidas as a big company, they do have like they have taken loans from different banks. It's not like from only one bank they have taken all the loans. It's like total 20 international banks they have taken the loan, and it's only 10% of their total credit that they take borrowings from a particular bank. So it's a very feel like according to the total billion worthiness, it's a very little price, like maybe in a 10 million or something like that. So the unlikely, like it can happen, is very unlikely since they already have such a good net income. And when we come to the interest rate risk, it's also with the same, like when Adidas as a company takes borrowings from different international banks, the interest changes year to year. Like in India, the interest was somewhere 6% before 10 years, but if we see now, it's more over 10 to 15% according depending on the what type of loan we take. Like for study loan, it's 12%, and for a car loan, it might be 9%. So it changes every year, but mainly Adidas currency, like the loans are in US dollar or Europe or in Japan. So in US, if we see, there is a very less probability that the interest rate is going to change, and in Europe mostly it is constant. So it can affect very minor, like the effectiveness of that particular risk is very less, and it can happen is also very less. So it comes under the green sector. Then coming to the financing and the liquidity risk, it's something, as we all know, liquidity is very important for a company. They need to maintain their liquidity all the time. But if we see Adidas, they have a very good control on their liquidity. Like they maintain at least $1,500 billion as a cash or cash equivalent, so that they will not go out of the cash. And also they do have around $2,000 billion as credit bilateral lines. That's why even though if it happens, like even though they have a liquidity issue, the effect will be very negligible, and the probability that it can happen is maybe like 30 to 50%. Since it's a big company, it always function in different countries. And these are some of the figures that we saw. As the other team has already explained it, how the changes in sensitivity of US dollar affects the total shareholder equity. So in total, if we see, Adidas has a very good control over their most of the risk, but some risk cannot be avoided. That's why if like currency risk and the impairment of goodwill risk, those risks are something that a company can never avoid it when they are a multinational company. So according to the risk matrix, they take the measurements or what should they do to avoid all those risks or mitigate those risks. Thank you.